On today's show, we have dug real deep into our archives to bring you some classic Australian motorsport from 1997. First up, we head to the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit in Victoria and look back on the second round of the 1997 Australian Superbike Championship, featuring the Superbikes and Supersport classes. Then we wind a little further forward of that year and head to the much-loved and missed Oran Park Raceway in Sydney, where we look back on the final round of the 1997 Australian Supertruck Championship. Along with the big rigs, there's classic action from the sports sedans, HQ Holdens and Group N historic touring cars. This is Speedweek.
Hello and welcome to Phillip Island Raceway here in Victoria. We're here for the second round of the 1997 Shell Advance Australian Motorcycle Road Racing Championships. Conditions, slightly cold, certainly windy, but the competitors starting to settle in for what should be a great day's racing. My co-commentator Ken Wootton caught up with Sean Giles prior to the first hit out for the day.
I really like Phillip Island, and I like riding the 600 as well. It's all going really well. At the moment we're just a bit uncompetitive on the superbikes, so I'm focusing a lot of attention to the 600s.
Must be difficult. You're racing in both classes this year, Superbike and Supersport, jumping from one to the other. What difficulties does that cause?
It's not really difficult to change from one to the other. Once you can ride one bike, you can normally ride another one. It's just the horsepower difference you've got to watch when you come off a turn.
Well, you can be certain that the Mobile Honda team pretty happy. Two competitors competitive in the 600 Supersport class. Ken Wootton, a huge field of entrants and too many to start on the grid.
Yeah, 57 entries, only 41 to qualify, so a lot of people travelling from right around Australia packing up the trailer and heading home. Not so Sean Giles. He'll start from pole position on the Mobile Honda CBR 600, just ahead of Paul Free's Suzuki. So it's good to see a mix of machinery on the front of the grid. We're in the starter's hands, looking for the green light. They're away. Watch for Sean Giles. He's the most experienced runner in the field, and if I had to put my money on anybody, Greg, that's where it would be.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kenny's going to have to work hard for it. He must be sitting in about 6th or 7th position. Not a good start for Sean Giles. He is really going to have to get his head down because there are a lot of competitors very, very strong in this class. Let's have a look. Glenn Richards, X125 racer, Bike 75, heads them down into the Southern Loop for the first time here at the island. Conditions can have really played a part as well in getting bikes set up through Friday and yesterday.
Well, these guys qualifying right on lap record pace, and really I didn't think the conditions were good enough for them to get down to those low times of 1:40, but it hasn't stopped Glenn Richards. We saw Paul Free slotting into second there, just ahead of the young Queenslander Josh McFarlane. So we've got a real good mix of machinery at the front of the pack there, a couple of Kawasaki's, Suzuki, and of course Giles. Talk about putting the mocker on somebody. No sooner do you give somebody a rap, he's back in the pack. They head up under the Shell Bridge now, up to this very fast right-hander. They call it the hay shed, and get out a little wide there, that's where you end up to Lukey Heights, and it's Glenn Richards, but Paul Free sweeping around the outside on that Suzuki. It's only the second Shell round for this brand new GSXR 600. Richards trying to come down the inside. He's not going to do it from there. It's going to be interesting to see them down the front straight this first time. What's got the legs, the Kawasaki or the Suzuki? Certainly last year the Kawasaki's were the bikes to beat.
They certainly were. In fact, Paul Free's Suzuki looks pretty strong right at the moment. Thank you very much, as he will lead them on to Wayne Gardner Straight for the first time here at the island. The question is, what will the slipstream do? It's a long straight. Slipstreaming always comes into play here at Phillip Island, and you can be almost certain that if you lead onto the straight and there's someone close behind, you won't lead off. And sure enough, have a look at this. Glenn Richards has gone right on by Paul Free. So Glenn Richards moves himself back into the lead. Now look at this. How tight are they heading into the Southern Loop? Formation racing. 4 of them, all side by side. That is as close as you're ever going to get here at Phillip Island. And the crowd, they are on their toes. This is great action. The 600 Supersports once again, turn it on. It doesn't matter where it is in the country. This is the closest class of racing. It is Richards putting up a strong fight at the moment, Ken. Tyres will come into play for these guys.
Tyres very important, and maybe we should talk about bike number 10 there, Adam Ferguson on the Team Advantage Honda CBR 600. He's running Michelin tyres, one of the few top runners to go to the French brand of rubber. Glenn Richards going underneath him there. He's on Dunlops, and oh, no. I think I'm jinxing everybody, Greg. No sooner do I comment on Adam being on a different sort of tyre than he's right out of shape. We look at Paul Free just behind him there, also getting locked up. That's typical of what we've seen in Supersport racing. Really close handlebar banging action. Look at Ferguson out of the seat as his rear tyre lets go very close to a high side, and he's lost 3 or 4 places while that's happened. Once again, this very important slipstream down the front straight. Richards leads into turn 1, Paul Free in second. Josh McFarlane, he's a bit of a sleeper here. He's putting in a really good race. First round at Baskerville, pulled out when his throttle cable broke, so I bet he's got a brand new one on for this meeting.
And a point to prove as he tries to go round the outside of Adam Ferguson. Paul Free up there into second place again, so he looks strong. And I think Ferguson just wants to get the points on the board. He just wants to get the runs and make sure that he brings the thing home. But how tight is this? Ferguson ducks to the outside, tries to come across the field. Will it work? It's a game of physics. I think Paul Free is going to win it at the moment. Hangs on to the lead. Adam Ferguson prepared to do anything and everything to try and get to the front of this pack. But it has to be at the last lap. You can't be doing this too early in the race, Ken. You're going to show your hand, and we've seen that slipstreaming really is starting to come into play with these guys. Paul Free on the pace, charging. Oh, Richards up the inside of Adam Ferguson. What a great move there from Richards, and I don't think Adam Ferguson could do anything about that.
I think the guy we've got to keep our eye on, 4th place, bike number 19, Sean Giles on the Mobile Honda. He's recovered from that terrible start. These top 3 slowing each other up. They're getting very ragged through some of these turns, hard on the brakes. Giles having to back off there as Richards comes across the front of him. The other one who's on the charge, Carl Muggeridge, appearing in the white leathers in the back there on bike number... I don't quite pick that up. He's on a Suzuki. It's him at the tail of that group just behind Josh McFarlane. But Paul Free's opened up a bit of a gap here. That's good. He's able to break the slipstream. These guys, though, if they work together behind, they'll be able to tow each other forward. And that's what they're doing. Look how they've closed the gap as they come into turn 1. Let's look on the replay as Richard shovels it under the inside. That's through that very fast turn 8 hayshed part of the circuit. Adam Ferguson just doing likewise there on Josh McFarlane. They are centimetre perfect here, and there's no room for error. But Paul Free is really opening up the taps on that Suzuki, and this could be a great outing for this still developing motorcycle. Still a lot of development left in the bike, and these other bikes behind, they've already done 1 or 2 seasons in this very competitive Shell series.
Certainly, yes. For a new machine, they've come up with an absolute cracker at the moment, and you can see here how hard is Adam Ferguson working, trying to get the drive there onto the straight. In fact, it strikes me Ferguson is down on horsepower, at least down on top speed. He lost 3 or 4 places the last time down the straight. There's bike 19, Sean Giles. The man's been around a long time, a very accomplished racer, tough to beat. He is a great thinker. That's what it's all about. Motorcycle racing, putting your brain in gear and getting your motorcycle to do what you need it to do. And that's what Giles is up to here into second place. So Sean Giles, the pole sitter, coming back from an appalling start. Adam Ferguson there, possibly a tyre problem. Not too keen to get on the gas coming out of MG that time through. But it is Sean Giles sitting in second place. Paul Free leading just ahead of him. And then there is this snarling pack behind them. You try and pick who it's going to be. On any one lap, we've had 3 and 4 changes in this small group racing for the lead. And speaking of the lead, Sean Giles now leads this, the first of the 600 Supersport races for the Shell Advance Series. Round 2, so early on in the season, but you can bet that everybody's super keen just to try and get a few points in the bank and then have a bit of a buffer towards the end of the season. I'm impressed with Paul Free on the Suzuki. This is a great performance.
Yeah, Paul Free, he's an ex-Victorian 250cc production champion, so he cut his teeth in that very close, I guess evenly matched class, and he's taken that ability that he learnt there to set up a pretty much standard bike into this faster, more competitive Supersport class. But Sean Giles, he's the class act of the field. We heard his interview at the beginning of this race where he said that it's not too difficult jumping from one bike to the next. Well, it mightn't be difficult for Sean Giles, but you've certainly got to be fit to race both Superbike and Supersport. The professional road racers in the States do it. Sean Giles is doing it here. There are a lot of detractors that said that the Mobile Honda team was making the wrong decision. It wouldn't work, but both Giles and Greg Moss able to do it. Look at Carl Muggeridge, look at Glenn Richards, the two of them very close out of Southern Loop. Richards down the track on his back. He looks okay, the ex-Australian 125 champion, but talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think it was just what you'd call a racing incident, Greg.
Well, Muggeridge just got up the inside. Oh, who's that? Muggeridge has gone down at Honda Corner. Hard to believe. These two guys really did get caught up, and I think Muggeridge, still with the heartbeat pounding after that incident, has just blown the exit out of Honda Corner. That's Glenn Richards. He is not a happy chappy, and nor is that a happy motorcycle. There's Muggeridge. I think he's just probably riding off to the side to keep the bike safe for the final time as they head down into MG. This is a great performance from Sean Giles. He's come from about 8th after a pretty rough start. Paul Free there, bike 12, sitting in 2nd place, but it will be Sean Giles. This man knows his way around Phillip Island, and he's certainly fast on a 600 Supersport bike. This is a great run from him as they head up onto Wayne Gardner Straight for the final time. It'll be a drag race. Can Paul Free do it? Side by side, Sean Giles for victory in the first of the Supersport races here at Phillip Island. Paul Free picks up 2nd place, and Josh McFarlane, Ken Wooten, a pretty tough ride into 3rd place.
There's some great racing, but I couldn't believe Carl Muggeridge. We saw him step off the bike cartwheel. So we look at the replay of the Glenn Richards incident, which involved Carl Muggeridge. Just not enough room, a slight touch of the handlebars. Richards is down and out. Look at his bike head off, and of course it cartwheeled as well when it hit the inside of the circuit. But Richards, thank goodness for that protective gear, good leathers, good helmet, good boots, and Richards, after that sensational, spectacular slide along the circuit, was able to get up and walk away. Bruised, slightly shaken, slightly stirred, but A-OK, and lucky to be missed by Josh McFarlane, who just flashes past there on bike number 3.
Great presence of mind. You can see here as he's looking, immediately turns his helmet around to try and see where the riders are coming from, where he should be on the track. And you'd be thinking to yourself, I want to be anywhere but here right at the moment. Immediately to his feet, makes sure the track is clear and gets away. Now, this is what happened immediately after that. This is Carl Muggeridge. The accident has already occurred. This is the aftermath. Have a look at the damage being done to this motorcycle. This will not be a very happy machine at all, and Carl Muggeridge, pretty well fortunate to be able to get up and walk away. Well, plenty of action here in the first 600 Supersport race. Your victor, Sean Giles.
We've got some of the best riders, but we've also got some of the best machines. But what's a superbike? Well, a superbike starts off as a production road-going motorcycle. For $15,000, you can buy the Suzuki, similar to what Troy Bayliss rides here, straight from the dealer floor. But then the serious modifications start. $10,000 for the special Öhlins front suspension. $4,000 for a set of lightweight racing wheels, maybe $4,000 for these Brembo twin disc brakes, the best in the business. And of course that's just at the front end. We modify the engine, we can put in hot camshafts, race kit carburetors, high compression. We end up with something like 150 horsepower at the rear wheel, and that's good for a top speed of about 290 kilometres an hour. Electronic shift patterns on the gear lever, racing slick tyres, all based on a production road-going motorcycle that can lap the Phillip Island circuit in around 1 minute 35 seconds. No mean feat. All you need is the talent like Troy Bayliss to allow that to happen.
Superbikes, and unfortunately some super dollars required to put them together, Ken.
Yes, superbike racing is expensive, but let's not forget it is the premier level of racing in Australia. There is a World Championship, there's an Australian Championship, and the guy on pole, Troy Bayliss, he's only half a second off the outright lap record for this circuit, so that's how competitive this grid is.
It certainly is going to be competitive. We're expecting to see some big things from the Ducatis. They have been fast. Let's have a look as they head under the Dunlop Bridge for the first run. Oh, strong start there for Connell. He looks good. And, of course, the senior rider in the team, you'd expect him to make a good run. Everyone looking just to sort of settle down. Tyres not up to temperature yet. Bayliss, though, from pole position, will lead them into the Southern Loop for the first time. That's Mark Willis, bike 68, his teammate. We've seen some fire from that young man into the bargain. Craggle sitting in second place. Then it's back to Martin. Then it's Willis. This is a big start for these guys, Ken Wood, and I think really everybody just trying to, well, sort out who's who in the zoo. Look at Bayliss. Oh, very loose heading into Honda.
That's how he rides it. Loose on the way out, loose on the way in. Steve Martin behind, also getting flicked out of the seat on the Ducati. What was interesting on that first lap is Craig Connell, who, we've lost a rider at, looks like Honda Corner. Can't quite pick up the number from here. Could be Scott Webster, one of our privateers on a Yamaha YZF 750, but let's hope he's A-OK. Looks like they're waving for an ambulance. Webster seems to have very heavy high side there. Probably had the wind knocked out of him coming out now. At least we know he'll be in good medical care. That's very quick response.
Yes, I think the organisers doing the right thing there, deciding immediately they would red flag the race. That means we have a restart, and it will be a restart for full race distance. Let's have a look and see who manages to do it a second time. The pressure's on Bayliss, but again, Connell, the absolute flyer of a start from the Ducati rider. Bayliss up the inside into second place. He's already forcing the issue, and we've got Craggle trying round the outside on cold tyres. That is a brave, brave move down into the southern loop. Speeds close to 180 kilometres an hour. That is very, very quick on cold tyres. Connell, though, will lead them down for the first time. Craggle looks desperate. This is going to come down to some late braking into Honda. What's Craggle going to do? Up the inside he goes. If he can hold this, he's ridden himself into the lead. That's Bayliss sitting back in third place. His teammate Willis now moves up into fourth. This is very close, and it's so early on in the race. I don't think they can keep this pace for the entire distance.
We've seen some great superbike racing over the last few rounds, not only in this Shell Advanced series, but also the Shell Superbike series that runs with the V8 touring cars. And Marty Craggle, he's on a roll. He's won 4 races in succession in that sister series, and doing his best here to hold off the Ducati of Craig Connell and also Troy Bayliss on the Suzuki. But the Kawasaki's, they've found some pace this season. As Bayliss cuts under the inside of Connell, he's after that green Kawasaki up ahead. But as I was saying, the Kawasaki's, they've found some pace. Looks like we've lost Alistair Maxwell. There's action on every corner. Kawasaki's faster this season. They've got a new gear drive for their cam system, and Marty Craggle putting that to great use down the front straight. They'll reach speeds of approaching 285 kilometres an hour. Bayliss with a wiggle from the Suzuki. Connell out of the slipstream. He's after Craggle. We've got Kawasaki, Ducati, Suzuki. Great mix of machinery.
Certainly is right at the moment. I think Bayliss desperate to try and take the chase right to the front. He does not want Martin Craggle to get away. By the same token, here's Buckmaster, his teammate, trying to keep up. Either way you look at it, no one wants to see anyone get the break. Craggle, though, determined, head down. You can see his head bobbing around in the air. He really is struggling with the bike. He's not struggling as hard as this one. Have a look at that as Bayliss. The bike just starting to squirm, and really, he must have a pretty tight setup on it, Ken, in order for it to behave like that. Normally at Phillip Island, you would expect them to maybe have a little bit of trail, a little bit of stability, but it seems that he set it up to try and get it into the corners and make it steer quickly. That's the result. You get a tank slapper. You wouldn't want it to get any worse.
No, there's a little bit of a bump under the Dunlop Bridge down the front straight as well, and that can set up that shimmy, particularly when you pull out of the slipstream and get the disturbed air. But nothing's disturbing Marty Craggle. He is so determined. When you see him tucked in behind the screen, he's got those mad eyes painted on the top of his helmet. He's the biggest bloke in the field, but he drapes himself right over that ZX7RR Kawasaki. He has to make sure that he's got the right aerodynamic shape to cut through the wind. We see Steve Martin on bike 5 all out of shape as he came out of turn 11. He's really adapting to this Ducati. It's only his second race on it after swapping from his privateer Melbourne Suzuki GSXR 750. Look at the speed here. This is a great ride from Buckmaster on bike number 4. He broke his collarbone a couple of meetings ago. He's still riding with a 30-degree misalignment. It's still got a fracture in it. He slots up to second. Bayliss comes through underneath. There's no love lost between these two. They swap teams in the off-season. Now Bayliss tries to cut to the inside. Evenly matched bikes, very determined riders.
Great ride here from the pair of the Ducati riders. In fact, you can see now teammates starting to battle each other. That's always one of the best battles on any racetrack anywhere, when teammates decide to start carving each other up. It is Craggle by not very much at the moment. Troy Bayliss sitting back in second position. He is desperate to try and make some ground, as is his teammate Damon Buckmaster. But win, lose or draw, it is Craggle at the moment, just hanging on. Then you've got this Ansett Air Freight Suzuki of Troy Bayliss. The next one is Steve Martin. Oh, who's that? Vanellini. Daniel Vanellini has found himself on the deck. And I think he's worked out which way to go. As we get back to this chase at the front, absolutely electric here at Phillip Island. Now, Steve Martin up into second position on the Ducati. He's on home turf, based here in Melbourne, and you can bet that he is determined to put his best foot forward. A great ride from him. Craig Connell, the second man in the team, in fact, the lead rider in the team, very experienced, ex-250 Australian champion, two-time 250 champion, and he's not quite as quick as his teammate. I'm sure he's going to do his best to fix that again. Late on brakes as they head down into Honda. These three riders, let's have a look on replay here, and you can see just how the back steps out. Nothing like plenty of horsepower to get the rear tyre spinning. A little bit of oversteer, but it is still Zurich Team Kawasaki's rider Martin Craggle in charge, flies under the Shell Bridge. Now the question is, what can Troy Bayliss do about this? He's sitting back in third position. A replay there of Daniel Vanellini's dramas, and he popped a bit of a knock on the head. I think that's why he was a little bit dazed as to which way was safe. Either way, these three guys know which way's safe. It's going to get them to the flag. They are absolutely pulling out all stops to do this. And you can see where the Ducati, Ken, really does have some advantages. Just short out of the corner, it is very, very good. Gets good traction. These are new 1997 spec machines that Steve Martin and Craig Connell are riding. They run on Michelin tyres, and the bike that we saw Vanellini step off, that's one of the ex-Ducati dealer team bikes that was sold off to that privateer team. But Steve Martin, this Ducati, it's really got some top-end mumbo. 996 cc's and quite a few improvements, but he's really got his hands full with these two 750cc machines. Bayliss and Craggle shoveling it right underneath Troy Bayliss through there. Marty Craggle is the hardest rider in the field. All the other riders will say that. He's not afraid to bump handlebars, rub elbows, particularly under brakes. Troy Bayliss is probably the most spectacular. As we see that, he dives underneath. He likes his bike loose. He rides it seemingly, look at that, out of control, seemingly out of control as he comes into Honda corner. And Steve Martin takes advantage and cuts underneath both of them. But Troy Bayliss has said, no, he thinks it's quite smooth. He doesn't notice it moving around. Let's look on the replay. Got the back end stepping out, still, I guess, rear wheel steers it into the corner, gets out a little wide, and Marty Craggle tries to come through, and Steve Martin cuts under both of them. But Steve Martin, as we said, this is a brand new model Ducati for this year. It's only his second race meeting on it, and he has adapted to it exceptionally well. He loves the Phillip Island circuit, and these three, any one of them can win. It could very well come down to a slipstream down the straight the last time. But some fantastic superbike racing. There's little doubt Steve Martin's settling quickly into this role. In fact, have a look at him here. He really does look a part of the motorcycle. Local knowledge does play a major part here at Phillip Island. These guys test here whenever they can. Testing days fairly limited here at Phillip Island, so you don't often get the chance to come and test as you would choose to, possibly at any other circuit. But you can see now that Bayliss just not prepared to let him go, comes out of the slipstream, and thank you very much, straight back into the lead. And Craggle sitting back in third, he won't be too happy about that. Now we know Craggle is fast in this area, heading down into the southern loop. For some reason he seems to be able to get a lot of mid-corner speed out of his Kawasaki. He definitely likes the front end pushing, whereas when you watch Bayliss, he loves to have the back end out. And as Ken Wooten was alluding to, it's the ultimate rear steer technique. Virtually dirt tracks it into this corner, Honda corner. Let's see how he goes this time. Martin up the inside. So Steve Martin, nice and tidy, kept it all together and has done exactly what he hoped to do a lap before, only this time he's done it without the other guys making an error and letting him through. Bayliss though, the pressure on. He wants to keep reeling off these wins. He already has 2 wins out of the first round when we're in Tasmania. And look at this, Craggle back up the inside, heading for the hay shed. Now they're heading for MG. Up and over Lukey Heights brings them down into this very tricky right-hander called MG, and you can really get yourself into trouble here if you haven't squared the machine up prior to trying to make it change direction. Here, they will stand out, first or second gear, depending on what type of gearing you've put on your motorcycle. But Martin, look at this, he's using all of the track. Baylis's bike seems very, very nervous today. It might be a different setup, possibly he just wants it to behave that way so as he can steer it in. There's Sean Giles, winner of the first 600 Supersport race. And remember that it was the race just before this one, so that man has done some laps around here already. Last lap. What can Craggle do? Well, he says, I'll try round the outside just to be a little bit different. Martin will fight back, can't do anything with it. This is a heady ride from Martin Craggle on their last lap. He's really thinking about where he's got to be, and right at the moment he's got to try and break away so as there's no chance of a slipstream beating him to the flag. Baylis, oh look at this, tries up the inside, heading for Honda. This is tight. Now, who is the latest breaker here? Let's have a look. Craggle defending the inside line. Will that work for him? Given that he doesn't run wide, Martin can't do anything with it, but Baylis sure can. Thank you very much. Martin a little bit wide. Don't give that kind of a chance to Troy Baylis anywhere, anytime.
Troy Baylis now, he's got to be in a good position to take this win out. He's going to have the slipstream down the straight on Marty Craggle. We know the Suzuki's a little faster. What he's got to hope is that Steve Martin doesn't get in the way and slow down his run. But Marty Craggle leads them up over Lukey Heights. He's only got 3 corners to go. The long, lanky Victorian right off the side of this Zurich Kawasaki. He knows he's got his ex-teammate Troy Baylis clamped to the ducktail. Around turn 11, very important to get the power on early here. They need a good drive around turn 12. That could cost Craggle dearly. The Kawasaki getting out of shape. He will have lost a little bit of momentum. And we've got Baylis now within striking distance. What Baylis needs is to get into that slipstream. He's there, he pulls out. Craggle tries to run him over to the wall, but it is Troy Baylis. Baylis gets through from 3rd position on the last lap up to take the win, and boy is he happy.
Superb ride from Troy Baylis, Team Ansett Air Freight Suzuki, and he will be one very, very happy chappy. The crowd here at Phillip Island ecstatic. What a performance for the first race in round 2 here at the island.
Troy Baylis by half a wheel after 12 laps. That's got to be one of the closest Superbike races you've ever been in.
I think it's the closest race I've been in for sure. But it was a really hard race, and there was plenty of action out there. And towards the end, I was thinking if I was in 2nd spot towards the end, I knew I'd just have to leave a little gap and get a run on the straight. And definitely have a slipstream. I was pretty sure I could come around him, but I just had to make sure I'd done it right onto the straight, and it turned out okay. So I was pretty lucky.
Suzuki, Kawasaki and Ducati all swapping places at the front of the pack. You had your nose in front when it mattered most, so you were thinking tactics even with that handlebar banging over the last few laps.
Definitely, everyone was riding really well, and it was for sure the hardest race I've had for a long time, and we're happy to come out on top.
Congratulations, I'm sure there's much more to come in race 2.
I'd say so, thank you.
We've already seen some fantastic action in the opening races here on the program. And the Superbike race, 3 riders flashing across the line, separated by 1 bike length. And the new lap record holder, Steve Martin, on the Ducati dealer team 996. Steve, you've got to be happy with a performance like that.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like, every time I ride the bike, I get faster and faster and more confident in it. It's a great machine.
Leading the race with a couple of laps to run, finishing up 3rd. What can we expect in race 2? You're going to let them get the better of you again?
I'm certainly not going to run wide on Honda Corner, that's for sure, because I left the door open and they went through there. But race 2, I'm going to try even harder.
Well, look out, because when Steve Martin's trying harder, you can expect there'll be fireworks. And fireworks, well, you can expect that right now, because these are the 250 production guns lining up for a start. John Chiodo, the Phillip Island specialist, will come from pole position. Ken Wooten, 57 motorcycles, 41 spots on the grid. How tight's that?
Well, we're going to see how tight, because the light's gone green, the field's away, and boy, have we got some desperados in this. Look for Clayton Chapman, the 24-year-old ex-transporter driver for Anthony Gobert. He's got all Gobert's habits when he gets on a motorcycle. John Chiodo, who loves nothing better than rubbing these young guns' noses in it. And they're all out there swapping handlebars. But the guy out leading, Simon Goodchild, he's 21 years of age. He's a multiple Australian dirt track champion. But would you believe he hasn't raced a motorcycle for 2 years? This is his comeback ride.
Not bad, considering he's leading this huge field out of the Southern Loop, heading for Honda for the first time. Let's have a look. I saw Matthew Turner up there, bike 99, sure enough, and Chapman there, 27. This is going to be a flyer of a race. You've got to remember, 250 production motorcycles. Look at Chapman's machine. That's 27. The front pattering as he came into Honda Corner. The 250 production machines, stock, standard, very, very little you can do to them. You can change the tyres, you can change the brake pads, you can put a different chain on it, and that's pretty well it. Here comes Chapman, 27. All of the bikes so close in performance. Ultimately, it comes down to one, tactics, and two, absolute desperation. It is Clayton Chapman off Lukey Heights down into MG for the first time, and you will not see any kind of a break down the straight. They are so close in performance. Chapman, though, looks strong, tucked up on the motorcycle. An aerodynamic device, I noticed, Ken, on the helmet. I wonder if that's just psychological.
Well, I think it is. He's got the Scott Russell fin on the top of his helmet, but what he needs is to lose about 10 or 15 kilos. Chapo admits that he's a little bit overweight. In fact, he's got those initials FC Chapman on the back of his leathers. But what's interesting here is Chapman, very much like Anthony Go, but he's riding the wheels off the thing, not putting a lot... it's nearly riding the wheels off the thing onto the dirt, but that's what happens when your bike's not set up properly. When you try to ride around problems, the problems come back and bite you. And Chapman there, we saw earlier, the front end pattering, not handling very well. Goodchild using fantastic bike control there, backing it into the corner, just like we've seen the Superbikes doing. But 21-year-old Goodchild, he started his road racing career in the 250 Proddies. Let's look at that replay. Chapman handing the lead over to Goodchild when he got all out of shape. What was interesting, he got straight back on the throttle, only lost a few bike lengths as they head up under the Shell Bridge to this very fast right-hander, the one we call the hay shed. Chapman now closing in on Goodchild. We saw Chapman, if you look at the replay, Goodchild coming in with the back out of shape. Matthew Turner in the background made Goodchild look smooth. He had his Suzuki RGV really crossed up. You can see he lost a bit of ground doing that.
Giotto now moving up into this top 4 or 5 group. So he didn't get such a good start. Came from pole position, but he does know his way around Phillip Island and will be tough to beat if he can get the break. Goodchild leads them through the double apexer to come up on the Wayne Gardner Straight. What a famous name at a famous circuit, the home of the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix. Goodchild, a little bit of a break. In fact, Chapman probably not into the slipstream. In fact, I'd say anything further back than about 3 bike lengths and you are definitely losing ground. Goodchild, though, heads down into turn 1 for the last time here in the 250 production race. And as you can see, Chapman up the inside. Thank you very much. How forceful is that? And you've got to remember, these bikes so close in performance. Ultimately, you're looking to use your brains to try and work out how to do it. Goodchild runs wide. What a run from him using all of the track. Can he do it? He's up the inside of Chapman. That's going to put him to the outside. He sweeps across the front. This is aggressive racing. Chapman out wide, the front pattering. These guys definitely earning their dollars today as Goodchild hangs on to it. What a performance from these two riders. Ken Wootton, new names to the game. Well, Goodchild, we haven't seen him for a couple of seasons, but these guys have pulled the pin.
Well, it's hard to believe. Goodchild, this is his first race back after a 2-year break, and Chapman, this is only his 3rd national road race meeting. He's never even ridden a road bike until August last year, right out of shape. Front end sliding around turn 8 up over Lukey. This is going to be desperate. Chapman tries for the outside. He's out in the marbles. He's out of shape. Lost control. Got it back under. There's Jeff Proctor. Slips up into 2nd place. Chapman tries to go round him. Can't do it. Proctor's got 2nd. Chapman back to 3rd. Let's look on the replay. What is he doing out there in the marbles, out near the gravel? Goodchild's had the race handed to him on a plate.
He says thank you very much, head down running for the flag. Jeff Proctor trying to hold out Clayton. Will he do it? But either way, Goodchild, a great performance. Proctor gets across for 2nd. Clayton Chapman in a super close 3rd place. Still plenty of action as they're heading towards the flag. Big field in the 250 production class. Well, no lack of fun here, Ken, at Phillip Island. And as we expected, there's going to be a big field for the 600 Supersport race. Let's have a look at them as they line up. It will be Sean Giles coming from pole position. Beside him, Paul Free on the Suzuki. And that Suzuki is quick.
Maybe quick, but Sean Giles on that mobile Honda CBR 600. He is the man of the series at the moment. Can they beat him? The light's gone green, the field's away. Look for Giles on bike 19 to be wanting a much better start than first time, but it's not Giles that leads them into turn one. It's Free who's up with the leading group. Josh McFarlane on bike number 3, the Queenslander. But it's the Victorian Paul Free who's got 40 Supersport bikes, a maximum field here this weekend at Phillip Island, snapping at his heels. This brand new GSXR 600, developed by Phil Tainton Racing in Melbourne. It's right on the pace, but it's Giles, a much better start this time through, and the most experienced rider in the field. Well, the man that's got a lot of experience on these particular bikes is right behind Free this time. So look for bike 19, Sean Giles, up this very fast back part of the circuit. Of course, the most experienced man in the field is 43-year-old Malcolm Campbell. But Sean Giles, he's done more laps on a Supersport bike than most of these other riders in the field.
Kevin Curtin looks strong there. We didn't see him in the first race. He's bike number 1, the defending champion. So he hasn't had the best of runs as they head down into MG, and you can see how late they are on brakes, how squirrely they get, very light. Oh, we've got a rider heading for the boondocks here at the moment, and it is slippery, unfortunately very slippery to the side of the circuit, and walks away, but he's none too plussed about that. To the charge at the front, and it is an absolute beauty. Here comes Sean Giles, bike 19. He had a long way to go in the first race after an appalling start, but look at this, Ferguson, bike 10 up the inside. He didn't have that much pace in the first race, Ken. They've obviously been doing some work, found a little bit of speed for him, up the inside and into the lead. Thank you very much. Down into the southern loop. What a performance. Kevin Curtin back to second. Then you've got Sean Giles, Paul Free, you name it. And we've heard the names before, not necessarily in the same order.
Here we've got a replay of that rider, a very minor step off there, but unable to pull the bike up on the greasy outer field here at Phillip Island, so stepping off rather than hitting that tyre barrier. But what's great up the front here, you've got Adam Ferguson, bike 10, he's on Michelin's, Paul Free on bike 12, he's running on Dunlops, and just behind them, bike number 1, the reigning Australian champion Kevin Curtin, he's on Bridgestone, so a great mix of tyres. Paul Free now shoveling through into the lead, and we've also got different brands of bike. Free on the Suzuki, Ferguson on the Honda, Kevin Curtin on the Kawasaki ZX6R, and Sean Giles also on the Honda. So 3 brands of bike, 3 brands of tyre, all fighting for the lead. Sean Giles down the inside into turn 1. A little further back in the pack, we've got Jason Love on the Ducati dealer team 748. So great mix of machinery. We've also got Yamahas in the field, but nobody's able to stick with Sean Giles. We mentioned before that he was one of the most experienced. There's a rider. Now that is a very interesting shortcut, heading off at turn 1 at about 200 kilometres an hour and through the drainage ditch. Adam Ferguson there on bike 10, very smooth around Honda Corner that time. But Sean Giles, in the early days of Super Street racing in New South Wales, he raced a CBR 600 before these other guys were even thinking about the class. And he's done lots and lots of laps in this category of racing. And that probably helps him. That's why he's way out in front at the moment. Of course, he's just stepped off the Superbike. But we look at Giles, he's opened up a very handy lead. Then it's Free, then it's Ferguson, and Greg Moss, his teammate, now up into 4th place.
Yes, a good run here from Greg Moss. He had a few problems down in Tasmania. Great to see him back. And look how strong he is here. He's ahead of the national champion, Adam Ferguson. He looks strong. In fact, his bike seems to have some real advantages in unusual spots on the circuit. There he is immediately up the inside, heading for the southern loop. Moss to the outside. Kevin Curtin not enjoying himself at all. Sean Giles free and clear of this dice that's going on. And you've got to hand it to the 600 Supersport riders. It doesn't matter where it is on the racetrack. These guys want to fight for someone else's spot. Now, Greg Moss up the inside. Can he hold it into Honda? Adam Ferguson to the outside, a trusting man when you've got Greg Moss so determined up the inside. Either way, Sean Giles down into MG. He's got control of this one. Paul Free. Then it's Greg Moss. A brilliant performance from these guys. And you've got to remember that testing on Friday was in appalling conditions. It really made life difficult for them. As Ken alluded to a little while ago, the fact of the matter is Sean Giles knows 600 Supersport type motorcycles and is putting in the ride of his life. 1 lap to go here at Phillip Island. Paul Free on the Suzuki. He really has put Suzuki's best foot forward, and Moss still under a lot of pressure, but Honda teammates 1 and 3 lap to go.
This is a great ride from Greg Moss. He had a tumble during practice. He's riding under injury. In fact, he's not riding the Superbike this weekend, concentrating on the Supersport machine. And as you mentioned before, Greg, a few problems for Greg Moss in Tassie. Those problems were being excluded from the results due to an eligibility concern. However, in a hearing a few days prior to this meeting, officials reinstated him. So a fair bit of aggro amongst the Supersport competitors. Some saying, if you got an illegal bike, what are you doing back in the results? Other people saying, well, the bike wasn't illegal, that's why I'm back in the results. So a little bit of contention out there amongst these Supersport guys, but you can't take it away from Sean Giles. He led the championship after the opening round in Tasmania. He's won the opening heat at Phillip Island this weekend. He's leading the second. He's coming round, he's got 2 corners to go. He looks to have this race in the bag. He's a very experienced, very smooth rider. The fact that he's riding in both classes is actually helping him this weekend. As he comes around, he's fitter than he's ever been, and this will be a great victory for Sean Giles. He's going to open up a massive lead in the championship as he guns the mobile Honda down the front straight to take the checkered flag. Daylight back to Paul Free on the Suzuki in second, and then Greg Moss holding out the pack for third. Obviously, riding a Superbike and a Supersport at the one meeting has done wonders for you this year. I doubt whether we've seen you in any better form than what we're seeing in 97.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying my riding, and to ride both classes is just a plus.
A very pumped up Sean Giles, and he will be on his motorcycle and making his way to the grid for this, the second Superbike race, round 2 here at Phillip Island of the 1997 Shell Advance Australian Road Racing Championships. From pole position, Troy Bayliss, beside him Steve Martin and Mark Willis, the second of the Suzuki riders, Ken Wooten. I think it's going to be tough, and I think that Steve Martin is going to be very hard to beat.
Well, I don't think we've seen a Superbike race all season where there's been more than a few bike lengths separating the leaders. As the green light flashes, they're off, not a moment's hesitation, and it's Craig Connell on that 996cc Ducati, that big V-twin that guns it down into turn 1 and leads them through the first time. But just as in the first race, it doesn't last for long. Troy Bayliss, bike number 3, our series leader, our first race winner, he's through to the lead, and he's going to be a hard man to catch from there. Bayliss, very loose, but he's got a very determined Marty Craggle. Let's look for Craggle under brakes into Honda corner. He's renowned as the biggest braker in the business. He's got the biggest set of brakes, and he uses them to good effect there.
He certainly was determined to try and get in early. One of the Ducati riders up and out of the saddle. I think that was Steve Martin. Craig Connell, no, it was Craig Connell, his teammate, but that was a big get up there out of the seat, and it really doesn't get any higher until you find yourself well and truly off the motorcycle and on the deck. Okay, look at the size of this Superbike field. Have a look at this on replay. That is as close as you're ever going to get to being thrown over the handlebars, but still managing to maintain control. In fact, I noticed one of the Ducatis pulling off the side of the circuit. They've got a bit of a problem. No problems at all, though, for Martin Craggle. In control for the first lap, at least, here at Phillip Island. Troy Bayliss in second position on the Suzuki. These two, a bit of a handy break. It's back to Damon Buckmaster, and that is Craig Connell. So it must have been Steve Martin pulling off to the side of the circuit with problems with his machine. Don't know what it is. It won't detract from this race at the front. The race you're seeing at the moment is for third place, but look at this, the speed of the Suzuki at better than 280 kilometres an hour. He gets up the inside of Martin Craggle, and we've got a problem for the second of the Ducatis, Craig Connell, pulling to the side. Obviously an engine detonation problem. 2 Ducatis gone in the first lap and a half.
Yeah, Steve Martin back into the pits with what must have been a misfire, and Craig Connell with a major engine hemorrhage down the straight. Let's look at the replay of Troy Bayliss, the wild man of Superbike racing. Front wheel in the air as he gets the power on, rear wheel stepping out of shape. He is spectacular on a motorcycle, but Marty Craggle doesn't look quite as spectacular out of the turns, but he is so determined, and under brakes there is nobody who can hold off Marty Craggle when it comes time to hit the picks. So bike 3, bike 2, these guys ran second and third in the Australian Superbike Championship last year. They were on Kawasaki's last year. Benny Archibald there on bike 69. He was on a Ducati last year. He swapped to a privateer Suzuki, and at least he's still running at the moment, but bad luck for the Ducati team. It's not bad luck for Troy Bayliss. He's got his nose in front. He's won the first 3 races in the 1997 championship. He's looking for 4 in a row. but he's got a very determined Kawasaki rider clamped to his rear wheel. Let's look for the speed down the straight this time. Craggle's in the slipstream, so there's every chance he'll be able to stick with Bayliss as they head into turn one. This Suzuki is putting out over 150 horsepower at the rear wheel. It's by far the best developed superbike for Suzuki in the world this year, and it's all put together in a little shed in outer Melbourne by Phil Tainton Racing, and Troy Bayliss putting it to good effect.
How many times have we seen these guys, albeit on different motorcycles, duking it out all over the country? This time it is Craggle flying the Kawasaki flag. Behind him, it is his teammate, Damon Buckmaster. Buckmaster used to ride for the Suzuki team. Each year, new colours, new bikes, new teams, and occasionally we see some new talent coming in. But these are the guys we've seen for the last couple of years doing their thing. Now, the point is, Bayliss under a lot of pressure at the moment. He needs to get in some smooth laps. He needs to try and make the break. Do you think Martin Craggle's going to let him do that? Absolutely not. Craggle, he will dog him as far and as long and as fast as he possibly can down into turn one. Remember, they are doing better than 280 kilometres per hour. You can imagine the force on the rider, the wind, the pressure, and not only that, you have to be thinking, what am I going to do to beat the guy behind me? This man prepared to do anything, anywhere, anytime. That is Martin Craggle's motto. He is deep on brakes. He gets underneath the fairing. We've talked about the size of the man. He is a big man, hard to hide from the wind, but look at him under brakes. Bayliss, a little bit of a blocking line there, Ken. I think really Bayliss just trying to settle down and get away from Martin Craggle.
In the as we look on the replay, Bayliss right out of shape as he backs the bike into the corner. We've seen Anthony Gobert do that on many occasions, but Bayliss desperately trying to hold off Craggle here. In the first race, Bayliss had rubber marks on his exhaust pipe, and those rubber marks had come from Marty Craggle's front wheel at Honda Corner. Bayliss trying to close every gap, but Marty Craggle doesn't need a gap. He makes them. He's got the nickname Mad Eyes. He's got some Mad Eyes painted on his helmet. He's got No Fear stickers on his helmet. You put the No Fear and the eyes together, and, well, no sooner do we say that, we jinx the man who was pressuring Bayliss. Marty Craggle, too early on the power out of MG Corner. There's no way he's going to get that bike started. So Troy Bayliss way out in front. The second of the group coming through with Damon Buckmaster riding under injury with a sore collarbone, a fractured collarbone in fact. We go back now and look at Buckmaster. He's under all sorts of pressure. He's got Sean Giles clamped to his rear wheel, and just behind them the 21-year-old rookie of the field, Mark Willis. But Buckmaster, we mentioned it before, he's riding with an actual misalignment in this collarbone, and the pressure on those arms and on that shoulder must be immense when he's changing direction, when he's under brakes. But Sean Giles, this is a great ride from him. The problem he's had is getting that bike off the line. The Honda RC45, it's got some new bits, but it's very hard to get mobile. And Giles was saying that he's got to hold it on the rev limiter at 14,000 revs and slip the clutch. Marty Craggle's not going to be worrying about the clutch back there in the pits.
I don't think he looked too pleased. He is A-OK, walk back, but of course he's thinking of the points that he's not earning. And in such a tight season, every single point will count. How about Mark Willis, the young gun, the new find in the season? He's already posted a couple of wins in the Superbike series.
Yeah, Mark Willis is, I guess, he's the reigning winner or reigning champion of the Arcade Chain Samurai Trophy, which is awarded each year to the most improved rider in Australian domestic competition. And past winners have included guys like Michael Doohan, Darryl Beattie, Anthony Gobert, Troy Corser. So he's in pretty good company. He won it in 1996 for his performance on a Supersport machine, signed up by Peter Goddard. He's mixing it with guys here with much more experience. Sean Giles there on bike 19, the mobile Honda RC45. Damon Buckmaster on bike 4, the Zurich Kawasaki. They've got a couple of seasons of Superbike experience behind them. Of course, Sean Giles, a winner of the Shell Superbike series a couple of years ago on the Ducati, the series that runs alongside the V8 supercars. So for Mark Willis to be up there mixing it and swapping fairing paint, bumping handlebars with these guys, and if you talk to him in the pits, he sets his standards so high, he's actually disappointed when he comes second or third, instead of having all that enthusiasm of being the young guy who's running at the front. he actually wants to be winning and winning every race.
Well, he certainly does some mileage travelling to events from Narrabri, and that's not near any racetrack anywhere in the country. So he really does settle into his racing purely on a basis that he wants to win, as you've just alluded to. The fact of the matter is he wants to win outright. He's not interested in second, third or anywhere else. But Mark Willis really is the find. In fact, speaking to Peter Doyle from Kawasaki late last year when they were starting to look for new competitors for their own team, he named Mark Willis as a rider that he would give the keys to the Team Kawasaki bikes to. Looks like Suzuki have picked him up, and haven't they picked up a talent? This battle continues down the straight here at Phillip Island, but that's your leader, Troy Bayliss. What a performance. He's heading for 4 out of 4 races and victory in this, as Mark Willis almost loses the front end. That looked a little tight for him, even tighter for Damon Buckmaster to the outside of him. There is trust beyond belief between these competitors. Riders will go side by side. Here it is again, and you can see that the front went, then he got on the gas and oversteered it out, and I think Buckmaster just pulling back that little bit, trying to stay out of what could have been a rather nasty dilemma for him. There's your leader, Troy Bayliss, fighting boredom at the moment. He's free and clear and really just thinking about keeping it tidy, not making any errors. The next man through, Sean Giles. Then it's Buckmaster and back to Mark Willis. And look at Willis's machine moving around. Ken, it strikes me both of the Suzuki's fairly steep steering angles. They seem to be very nervous.
Yes, very nimble bikes. The way they're set up, quite firm in the suspension, very steep steering angles, so they're very quick to get through the corners, but it makes them a little unstable in a straight line. But they're also very powerful bikes. We said before they've got over 150 horsepower at the rear wheel, and as soon as you twist that throttle, you've only got a patch of rubber about the size of a cigarette packet, maybe the size of the palm of your hand. As we look at Troy Bayliss gunning this thing down the straight to start the last lap, we call it a thing, it's a bit of a beast. To ride one of these things flat out, hold on to those handlebars as it bucks and weaves, is not easy. They've got steering dampers and they brace the frame and they try to stiffen them up, but ultimately the power to weight ratio on these bikes even exceeds a Formula One car. As far as Group A supercars, as far as Formula One bikes, things like that go, these are production-based motorcycles and they're putting a lot of horsepower through 162 kilos. You nearly got a 1-to-1 ratio. And as we see there, Mark Willis desperately trying to stick with Buckmaster, looking for third place, but take nothing away from Troy Bayliss way out in front. He's had an excellent ride once he threw off the challenge of Marty Craggle. Willis still trying very hard, but it's a great ride also from Sean Giles. This is one of the best performances we've seen from the Mobile RC45 so far this season.
Look at Willis on replay. It gives you an idea of what 150 plus horsepower can do. The rear definitely trying to overtake the front. It is your race leader though for the final time, heading for the double apexer to come on to Wayne Gardner Straight. And what a performance from Troy Bayliss. This will make 4 out of 4, and that is maximum points in this, the second round of the Australian Road Racing Championships. Head down and heading for the flag. This will be victory, very sweet for Troy Bayliss. Gets across the line, waiting for Sean Giles in second place. And who will it be? Damon Buckmaster gets across the line and picks up a great third place. Troy Bayliss now moves into a commanding lead in the Shell Advance Australian Road Racing Championships. And you can bet he was one of the happiest men sitting in the pits when Ken Wooten caught up with him.
Troy Bayliss, 4 wins from 4 starts in the championship. Must have been great to see that checkered flag.
Yeah, it felt pretty good. The bike and everything was working really well, and the second race seemed a lot easier than the first one. I don't know what happened behind me, but I had seen the board every lap, had a good little gap, and just kept cruising. Everything went really well. So yeah, we're pretty happy, really happy. The team worked really well.
Well, congratulations to Troy Bayliss. On behalf of Ken Wooten and myself, thanks for your company. We look forward to seeing you at Eastern Creek for round 3 of the Shell Advance Australian Road Racing Championship.
Coming up after the break, we look back on the final round of the 1997 Australian Super Truck Championship from Oran Park Raceway.